Welcome to podcast number 5. We're already at number 5 of the Drop Everything podcast. This will be my conversation with Ivan Pecel. The buff, beautiful, multi-talented Ivan Pecel. I think you'll really enjoy this talk. He's quite a raconteur or racquetball player. Well, I think that's the same thing. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. I hope you get a lot of good tips, a lot of good advice on how you can take your career to the levels that Ivan Pecel has achieved. Before we get there, though, let's thank our sponsors, starting off with the International Juggling Association. You can find them at juggle.org. And you can find this podcast there as well, of course, as part of the e-Juggle e-magazine feature. And I think there's a centerfold this month on e-Juggle of Ivan Pecel, coincidentally. So go to juggle.org and join the IJA. Take your juggling to new heights today. Also, the sponsor, braindrizzles.com. Braindrizzles.com is my personal comedy coaching and career mentorship website. So if you're just starting out in this business or you've been in it for a while and feel stagnant, you want some help, you want some advice, you want to take your comedy career to new levels, check out braindrizzles.com. Pour yourself a cold, frothy beverage. If you're kids, make that root beer. If you're adults, maybe something without sugar, because sugar's bad for you. Enjoy yourself, drop everything, open up those ears, and listen to my conversation with Ivan Pecel. And now, welcome to the Drop Everything podcast, State of the Art, Ivan Pecel. That's my nickname for you, State of the Art.
That's cool. I'm gonna get that tattooed on my back.
Well, I call Michael Davis the godfather of comedy juggling, and I call you State of the Art because I think that for jugglers having careers now, you're doing as good as you can do. I think you're doing it just right.
Well, thank you. I work really hard at it.
Let's talk about your slogan, making juggling tolerable. How'd that come about, and why did it come about?
Let's talk about this. So my whole life, literally my whole life, I've always dealt with the whole, as I'm sure you have, and I assume if you're listening to this, you're a juggler. That's one of the things. Unfortunately, juggling has this stigma around it, kind of like, oh, you're a juggler, so stuff didn't really work out, huh? Or like people don't, they don't want to come see your show, or they just don't understand what you do. And so I feel the making juggling tolerable. Basically, I'm kind of just making fun of that whole concept that people are having, and if they get my slogan, I feel like they're gonna get my show. You know what I mean?
Sure. People
So
kind of lump us all together. If they've seen a juggler, they've like, I've seen juggling.
Exactly. Yeah, and even like Jason with the WJF, more or less, he tried to really break the mold, and he did as good a job as anybody, I think, doing it. I mean, I really commend him for that. But even still, people watch it on ESPN, they're like, "That's a sport," or like, "What the hell is this?" I mean, they're comparing it to competitive bingo and lumberjack competitions. It seems kind of just ridiculous, So the whole. It's hard for people to believe that juggling is actually a job. And even when I when I work on cruise ships or theaters or anything, like they always just go like, oh, a juggler. They think they're just going to go and see somebody standing there throwing and catching stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of making fun of the fact that like, look, you're still going to hate it, but you're going to hate it a little less when I'm done.
Well, like with the WJF, I always think that in my mind, Jason tried to create like an Olympic sport, and he ended up creating a roller derby.
It's perfect. I mean, he did more than anybody else did.
No, you got to admire what he's done. He's certainly a trailblazer, and he kind of ran into that thing where how do you make juggling popular? And he tried to start by just having juggling, like, okay, don't move, don't move your feet. Right. People really will like just the pure technical brutishness of just great juggling. I think he realized no. They need more. They need balls thrown at your head and knocking the clubs out of people's hands.
And actually, I give, not to say anything bad about Jason, but I've known him forever. I actually again commend him for kind of changing, because before he was like, your first couple WJFs, he wouldn't even let like a devil stick in, or he wouldn't let people do Diablo. And so now, I mean, really now it's a 3-ring circus.
Well, I think he combined it with mad skills or some.
Yeah, I saw the thing he's doing.
Yeah, he's got flair bartending and
yeah.
I think competitive branding. No, that's rodeo.
I'm willing to watch though.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. That was always my thing for the IGA. I always thought they should open up the umbrella and make it sort of like the gravity arts and have
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
bartending and frisbee and baton twirling and
Yeah, yeah,
still have the
sure.
IGA competitions. But when you limit it to just juggling, like you say, it's just too narrow. It's just too, there's not enough
What
people
is? I
interested.
mean, the community's not that big. I mean, let's face it. I mean, comparatively to other
No,
sports or other hobbies, I mean, it's kind of a narrow
I
community.
think it hit its peak maybe in the late 80s or something. Because I came up through what they call new vaudeville. And I think you're a little bit after that.
Yeah.
So how does one become an Ivan Pecel? Because you seem like you're a guy who had choices where maybe some of us misfit toys juggling
How
was
does
like
how do,
it was our only route.
how does one become? Well, what I do, I take 3 5-hour power naps a day.
Okay.
That's one of the main things. A good 15 hours of sleep a day, and then a good 8 hours at night.
Well,
Uh,
what's your background? What did your parents do, and how did they
well,
take this juggling career?
So okay, I mean, I started when I was 10. Of course, there was no. I'm 33, so I was 10 in 91.
Mhm.
There's no internet. To be honest, I hadn't really seen another juggler anywhere. I saw a guy at a street fair doing it, and I honestly thought it was like the lamest thing I've ever seen in my life. I wish I knew who it was. He was street performing. He'd obviously done it before. He was wearing a vest and a derby hat, and he had props. And I just remember watching him, thinking, "This is like the most campy, this is ridiculous. Like I really hate this." And I went home and I was like, I guarantee I could try that, or I guarantee I could do that. And I went home and tried it, could do it, and just kind of ended up taking it way too far. And now I'm on this podcast. You know.
So could that juggler have been Dan Raspini? Is that
Yeah,
possible?
actually, name sounds really familiar. I've never heard of that. I've
I
never
have
heard
the
that name.
vest because I have the vest and the bowler hat.
I've never heard that name though, so I don't think so.
Now, what did your dad do? He wasn't in show business, was he in any way?
No, 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 no. So my dad owned a construction company. Him and my uncle owned a construction company, and they did pretty well with that. My mom stayed at home with my brother and I, and then my grandparents were actually professional ice skaters. Back in the 50s,
Mhm.
60s. And my grandfather got out of the war because Sonia Henney, who was like an Olympic
Sure.
skater and a movie
Movie
star,
star. Yeah.
yeah, she requested my grandfather to be her partner, and so he got out of the war because of her. And then growing up doing ice capades and Icelandic and stuff, they skated with Albert Lucas, and they knew Albert Lucas when he was 10 years old, and so it was. Yeah, I mean, I had a show business background in that aspect, but by the time I came along, they were already well retired and everything. I was really lucky because I'd never seen a comedy juggler. I didn't even know this was a thing. Like I didn't even know this is what like a career option.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when I was born and raised out in Los Angeles, and I found out about the juggling club out here, actually through Dave Finnegan's book. Which I found at a bookstore, The Complete Juggler, and it had a list of all the
You're
clubs in the
talking about
back.
the Thursday night at Valley College?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Thursday Night Valley Club. That thing's been around for like 30 years or
Yeah,
whatever.
Mike Washlake started that, and
Yeah, he's still there.
I went there. That was the first club I ever went to, and the entire extent of my props, but my first juggling club, 3 green oranges. I was 17 years old, and I went to Valley College.
Are you sure they weren't limes?
No, because the green oranges lasted longer. I get
Gotcha.
them. If they were too ripe, they'd break too quickly.
Right.
I didn't know about lacrosse balls or baseballs. Uh,
Yeah.
three. So that was my actually first thing. Was 17 years old. My mom had found out about it, and so I owe a lot to the whole Thursday night thing as well.
Yeah, and so I mean, when I started, it was kind of like I started going, I guess, when I was in high school, 16, 17 years old. This is like mid to late 90s, and at the time, that was the club. I mean, you had Nizer, you had Passing Zone there all the time. Calvin, I remember seeing you guys there sometimes. You had guys from Orange County coming up. Dan Bennett was there. Jason Garfield was there. Bryson Lang. I mean, just everybody seemed like there was a lot of. Edward Jackman was there a lot. I mean, it just seemed like there was a lot of pro jugglers that were at this club, and so I was lucky because I got to meet all these people. And after talking to them, really kind of realized like, oh, this is a thing, And for whatever reason, Nizer kind of took me under his wing, and went to a bunch of shows with him, and he was good enough to talk to me about show business. Same with like John Wee and stuff. And yeah, I kind of grew up around them, and I knew that this is kind of what I wanted to do. And they very early on were like, you better learn to be funny, or you better get an act together because no one cares about juggling.
So
You know what
how'd
I
you
mean?
know this was what you wanted to do? So you learned to juggle as sort of a lark, just to show that you could do it. That
Yeah,
looks so
yeah,
easy, or this guy
yeah.
was such a
And
kook,
so,
you thought he could do it.
well, I've always liked speaking in front of people. I always liked comedy. I guess when I was younger, I didn't really know. Like, I wasn't like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. But in high school, and as I got a little bit older, when I met these people and I got to see Mark's show, I saw Passing Zone show, and saw that this was like an actual thing. I was like, that's what I want to do. Like,
Right.
that's what I'm gonna work for. And so my parents were always super supportive, and they were just like, hey, as long as you go to college, get your degree, then you can go do your monkey show and see what happens. So I basically picked the degree that had the least amount of math in it, and ended up getting my degree in film production, and basically started doing a lot of stuff in college. I found a bunch of. I've always worked with agents and not a manager, but I've always worked with agents and promoters and just as many different people as I could. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I try to do everything my own," but I don't know. If people get me work, I have no problem giving them a commission or doing that. That's just how I feel, and that's been my approach for almost my whole career. And I was able in college. I was living in my fraternity, which was like $90 a month to live there, and I was making a lot of money doing events around LA. I got this event planner called Interactive Games and Creations. And they're not there anymore, so don't even bother Googling it.
Okay.
You bunch of hacks.
Shoot,
You're Googling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, I mean, they had me. I performed at the Oscars. I performed at the NBA All-Star Game. I did this thing where I opened for the Rolling Stones on Halloween night. All this stuff around LA. All this great, and it paid really well. And like I said, my rent or whatever was $90 a month in my fraternity house. And so I was able to save up enough money during college. And when I graduated, I bought my first house in Vegas. And I moved out to Vegas, and then I was on a cruise ship, which is like that was the main thing I wanted to do right out of school. I wanted to do ships. My parents were big cruisers as far as a vacation goes. I'd been on a bunch of cruises. I was like, this is cool. Like, I want to perform on a ship. And I got with an agent before I graduated college, and basically the day I was out, I started doing ships. And I've never really had a slow moment in my career, really.
So going back a little bit, when you say you saw like Mark Nizer and the Passing Zone, what were some of the words of wisdom that maybe you could pass along that you got from them to the jugglers who might be starting their careers now? And do you think they still apply? I mean, have things changed a lot since you started?
Yeah. I mean, I remember Passing Zone and Mark. There was like, always carry a pager. Make sure to have a fax number, and that's not really applicable.
No,
No,
right, exactly.
definitely not. No, no. The stuff that they told me, it definitely is still applicable today. I think in the U.S. especially. If you're going to Europe and that's your thing, you want to be in Cirque du Soleil, it is a different game. But I truly feel that if you want to make a good living, not even like a good living, you have to have something else to your show. You have to be funny, and I really do believe that. And I don't think that's just me saying, oh, this is what I like. I really think you have to be.
Well, look how long you have to do. I mean, if you're on a cruise ship, I mean,
I'm working.
What, 55, 60 minutes?
Yeah, it's like I'm working Disney like a week every 2 months. I'm on a Disney cruise. I do 6 Disney cruises a year, and on average, I'm doing an hour and a half of different material
Right.
On the ship. And if I was just a juggler, I mean, that job wouldn't be available to me. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
most corporate shows. I mean, I think in my entire career, I've maybe done, and I'm talking now like a real 12-year career. I have done maybe 3 or 4 well-paying gigs that didn't want me to talk.
I think like maybe
12
basketball
years.
half times or one of those like,
Sure,
8 minutes
exactly.
run out.
Yeah. I mean, like Josh Horton is kicking ass at doing halftime shows,
Right.
and he's one of the only jugglers I know that's doing it, and he's doing really well. I mean, he's not making $10,000 a show or anything by any means, but he's working a lot, and so anyway, they said that be funny. The business side of it is also the main thing. Is Mark Nizer always told me there's it's called show business. There's 2 words, and one of the words is bigger than the other one. So you can have a great act. You can be the best juggler in the world. No one's going to be knocking down your door for stuff. You need to promote yourself. You need to have a business sense. You need to have a website. You need to have photos. You need to have and not only you need to have this stuff, but you need to have it be done well.
You also put on a lot of social media. How important has that been to your career? the Facebook and the
Well,
YouTube and
nowadays a lot. I mean, because everything is on YouTube now. Everything, basically when I do contact new agents or something, and they're like, send me a DVD. I'm like, well, here's my link. They're like, oh no, we want a DVD. I literally just go, okay, well, thanks, but
right. Who still wants?
yeah,
That's a pretty old
exactly. Yeah,
school. Yeah.
yeah, see you later.
Send me a DVD, young man, and
Exactly,
I'll
exactly.
put it in my
You're,
VHS machine.
you're gonna be a star, kid. Uh,
We had guys like that back in the day. Eddie Diamond. My name is Eddie Diamond.
of course
He had an office in the back of a thrift store.
of course he did.
And
Always,
his
always
big thing
had a
was
cigar. Yeah.
his big thing was you got to have an American flag. What do you mean? Because I had this act, unicyclists, and one sitting on the other one's shoulders. And at the end, American flags come out of the spokes. Where's your American flag? So, which was pretty. I use a lot of American flags, so it wasn't a bad advice. But
Right.
I go, if you're such a, why are you in the back of a thrift store?
Can't really
Don't
work
judge
in
me by
China.
my location, kid.
No, exactly. You guys worked with him. Everybody worked with him. He was the oldest man in the world, and he lived in Vegas. He was the oldest agent in Vegas.
Gil Miller, he was like,
Yep, it was.
Yeah.
It was Gil Miller. And so when I moved to Vegas, he saw me in a casino or something and asked me to come in. And his wife made me a sandwich. It was great. And I'm in his office, and it was literally like if you were to draw a cartoon of the craziest office you've ever seen. It was this guy's office. It would from floor to ceiling stacks of every VHS tape you've ever seen, like promo videos. I mean, I remember seeing Dana Tyson. I remember seeing your guys' promo, and I mean, you name it, their promo tape was at this thing. And so the guy sat down. He said, "I really like your act. It's new." He's like, "But you got to wear long sleeves." I'm like, "What?" And he says, "Yeah, everyone wears long. You have to wear long sleeves." I'm like, I don't think I have to wear long sleeves. Like what I'm wearing is like I got it done by a costume designer. It's like, I mean, fitted pants. I have a very well fitted collar shirt, but it's not long sleeve. You don't. He goes, "Nah, I can't book you if you're not wearing long sleeves." I was like, that doesn't even make sense.
We used to see in our first costumes. We were with Simone Finner, who used to book Dick Franco and Barrett Felker.
Yeah.
And she had us dressed in the one-piece jumpsuits.
Oh right. Well, those I still think those are coming back.
The Nino Fradiani, like you look like you're ready to ice skate or something.
Yeah. Nizer still has his.
Yeah, the one-piece jumpsuit.
I think I wore it for an IJ one time.
I remember my Gil Miller story is that he came and saw me like at Elks Club or when I was doing solo, and he said, "Oh, you're good, kid." All my old men sound the same, but he said, he goes, but I only handle one juggler at a time. I just booked Nino Fradiani to a 7-year contract. I'm like, does that mean for 7 years you don't have a juggler? I only book one at a time. I'm like, but you're just saying for 7 years he's tied up. So
yeah.
Or maybe he was the guy also. There's another guy who said to us, we did a fair showcase, and we said we wanted 1,500 a week, 1,500 a day.
Yeah.
And he said, for that, I can get the water skiing squirrel.
Well, I mean, that is, what are you gonna do?
Well, yeah, I'd get the water skiing squirrel too. Have you ever seen the water skiing squirrel?
I have. He's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. He's kind of a dick. He's kind of a dick, though.
Hard to work with.
He is hard.
Yeah, a little bit of Madonna. So,
but good act.
So okay, so how do you think someone gets good at comedy? You're saying how, like I was talking to Dan Menendez, and he said that he thought it was 80% comedy, 20% juggling. So what do you think? Because I think you're one of the few guys I would say, for my taste, is funny. So
well, thank you. I mean, it does mean a lot coming from you. It's just like anything else. I mean, getting good at comedy it's a muscle. It's the same as practicing juggling. Of course, the practice is completely different. To be honest, I think it's way harder than juggling. I really do. To get good at it. Reason being is because I can stand there by myself in a racquetball court and practice 7 balls for 3 years, and then go out on stage and just do it. And okay, I did it. You can't practice being funny unless you do it in front of people. And starting out doing comedy, it's amazing to me that anybody would say, "Yeah, I'm going to go do that again" after their first time. It's the most miserable, heart-pounding torture you could ever endure. People are basically hating you. You're trying to be funny, you're trying to entertain them, and they're basically not liking you. And it's hard to come back from that. But you kind of have to, because you do it a few times, and then once something does click, there's nothing better than that feeling. I get no better satisfaction than when I work really hard on a joke and I try it and it kills. Like, honestly, I've talked to a lot of people about it because I do a lot of stand-up, if I say this kind of in jest, but I mean, if I could, like, I would just be a stand-up. Like, I get so much satisfaction out of that. But I do have this skill that I put, 23 years of my life into, so there's no reason to not do it. You know what I mean?
Well, do you
Uh,
think that at a certain point down the road, you might transition into straight stand-up and then
I don't. Here's the reason I don't think. I don't think so. And the main reason is because I have put so much of my life into this, and I've developed my show over the past 20 years to be where it is right now. In order to do just a stand-up show and be as funny as a really good stand-up comic, I feel like I would have had to put that much time into that as I have into this, and I just don't have that much time. So I mean, I practice still, not nearly as much as I used to. I mean, the WJF days I was doing 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Now I do so many shows that I basically practice the stuff that's in my show. Every once in a while, I'll just try some stuff for fun, but it's definitely not like it used to be. It's mainly working on the show. It's mainly writing comedy. Here's another piece of advice that Passing Zone actually gave me, both John and Owen, and they said at the time, I'm 16, 17 years old. They're like, you already are better than most professional jugglers. Like, to be a pro juggler you don't need to be any better at juggling. You need to be funny. And that's the thing. It doesn't really matter how good you are. I think it helps. I do really like. I mean, I do consider myself a good juggler, and I do like having the ability to be funny and then do a kick-ass 3.5 minute music routine. That people actually go, oh wow, like that is. And I do have some hard stuff in there.
well, you competed in the IGA, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I did a handful of IJ, yeah, silver and bronze and IJA, and won a bunch of their other prop competitions, stuff like that, and did WJF stuff. So, I mean, I definitely put my time in for that. But it's just, I also got burned out.
Well, I think you probably, like a lot of us, realize, like you said, you're already a good enough juggler. The audience isn't going, oh, I would have liked him better if he was a better juggler.
Exactly, and no one is going, you know what? If you could just do one more club, get you an extra $1,000 a show.
Right.
Never gonna happen.
Where do you see your career going? I mean, where do you see right now? I think you're like at the top of the heap as far as if I look at your schedule, it's awesome. It's corporates, it's colleges, it's cruise ships, it's
Yeah, well, I've always, thank you. I've always really tried to stay diverse in everything I do. I still do comedy clubs a lot, and like one of my favorite gigs of the year is I headline Catch a Rising Star Comedy Club for a week, and I don't want to say the number, but it's basically the worst paying gig I have like all year, but I love it, and I try new stuff, and it's great. And the reason I do that is to keep my foot in the door. You never know what's going to happen. When I first started, right out of college, I was probably doing 30, 35 weeks a year on cruise ships. My ex-wife was traveling with me all the time, and I could bring her for free. So we were, 23 years old, getting paid basically to see the world. So for a couple of years, I had all my eggs in that basket. And then I was just kind of thinking, looking at the market, looking at everything. I'm like, this isn't going to be like this forever. Also, do I want to travel like this forever? Do I want to be gone over Christmases all the time? Eventually, we want to have a family and kids. Like, what are we going to do? Am I going to raise them on cruise ships, or am I going to be gone 30 weeks a year from my family? So I started really branching out and pushing other stuff. I started trying to do colleges. Starting to do more corporate shows. Basically anything. So over the years, I've weeded down the ships to right now. I think I'm doing 11 weeks this year, which ends up being about a week a month on the ships. Now the cool thing about the ships is that they book you a year in advance, and so for an entertainer, having an entire year booked is a pretty good feeling. And so what I can do is I can book my week a month, whatever I want, and then I work around that with corporates and colleges and all that stuff. And also, every venue is different. So my show that I do on cruise ships is a little different than a show I would do for corporates, which is very different than a show I would do for colleges, which is very different than a show I would do for comedy clubs. So it's I mean, the same type of tricks, basically same routines, but maybe your attitude is different, or your humor is a little different. You definitely throw in different jokes and things like that. But another piece of big advice that I have for anybody is always stay diverse. Like, you never put all your eggs in one basket, because you never know what's gonna happen.
Well, like for us, we started out I would say 80-90% of our work was opening acts.
Mm-hmm.
Like we opened for the celebrities in Vegas and on tour.
That's not even a gig anymore.
No. Our last offer was many years ago, and it was like I think a tenth of what we got on our very first offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who knew? Who knew that market would totally vanish?
Yeah, it does. I mean, Vegas was like that too.
Yeah.
All the Vegas shows, like I still have my house in Vegas, but I lived there for 9 years. Did a lot of the shows out there, and I remember I was in the show called Jubilee, which was after like a time when like my highlights of my career. Like anybody was in that show. Lance Burton did the show. Anthony Gatto was in the show when he was 13 years old, and so when Anthony. But here's the way Vegas goes basically now. So when Anthony was 13 years old, he was making $2,000 more a week than I was whenever I did it 7-8 years ago. So, nice. But yeah, and so he was offered the gig back as well, and for like way less than he was making when he was 13 years old, and that's how Vegas is, and that's one of the main reasons actually Anthony joined Cirque, is because his work was basically like dried up, and he's the best juggler in the world.
Well, we used to go to Vegas when I was a kid. I'd go with some friends, like when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. We could see 5 or 6 jugglers up and down the strip.
Oh, yeah.
You'd see Albert Lucas. You'd see Nino Fradiani. Chris Cremo at the Stardust.
Right.
Was one of my treats to go see him. And now I was just talking to a friend about working Circus, and he goes, "Oh, I hear it's a dump, and they don't pay anything now."
Oh, no. You get a lot of foreign acts that are basically coming here to be in America.
Yeah, you get like 4 or 5 guys for the price of one. They all live together in a room, and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys that have, obviously Michael Godot cleaned up being in Lance Burton's show.
Yeah.
That was kind of I don't want to call it a fluke gig, but he had the easiest gig in show business for a long time, and no, it
was like a 13-year run or something, wasn't it?
Oh, it was like 20. I mean, he did it forever. he really did. He did it forever.
I worked with Lance Burton. He was the opening act, and he also helped Lance put some of the material together, I believe, for that.
Yeah, no, he a great guy, like great guy, and he's a funny act, and he writes with Penn and Teller, great guy. But yeah, so like he was a guy who made a great living in Vegas, but like it was a unique situation. He wasn't just like in a show, you know what I mean? He was like part of the cast of that. Wally Eastwood is still out there doing really well. Michael Hawley has been out there for a long time, but even Michael Hawley is doing ships a lot now.
Didn't Jeff Savilico have his own show, like an afternoon show?
He still does.
He still does.
Oh yeah, he still does. But so if you guys don't know Jeff Savilico, he won the junior championship in Primm, Nevada in 1998. Yeah, he's one of the guys. Like he's a really, really, really good friend of mine. And we always joke because we're about the same age. He's like 2 years younger than me, or 3 years younger than me. But we're always like we're the guys that keep each other motivated, because it's like in a way we're competition for each other, but we're really good friends. And it's cool because like he's one of the guys where if I can't do something, I'll recommend him, and vice versa. But he works harder than I can honestly say. He works harder than anybody in show business, and he deserves every single thing that he has.
How far do you think a juggler can go? Do you feel that he or you have that potential to sort of get away from the stigma of being the juggler and being the one?
Yeah, like I really do. See, now with so many different media outlets, I think it's going to transform into something else. For instance, a magician who's exactly my age, who I actually grew up with, Justin Willman. He used to go by Just Incredible.
Right.
And he won College Entertainer of the Year, for 3 years. He does a comedy magic show. Okay. And now he hosts Cupcake Wars, and he hosts the Scrabble show, and he does a lot of TV stuff. I don't see a juggler being a pop icon. Right. I don't see a juggler being as trendy as even a magician could be. But I do see somebody personality-wise who was a juggler being able to breach and go into that next level.
Because it's hard to see where juggling would fit, right? I mean, I saw Justin on the Jay Leno where he sat down with Jay.
Yeah,
he involved Jay with a trick.
Exactly. And and also magic is a little more interactive. You can make it a little more personal than juggling. You go up to somebody and juggle in their face, they're gonna ask you what you're doing in their house, kind of thing.
It's hard to add sex appeal. It's hard to add like like in magic, you can have the production with the
Oh, it's impossible.
dancers.
Yeah, it's hard because it's such a just looking at it, it's like basically someone's like, why is he doing that?
Yeah.
Like when I do like this year, I'm doing 60 colleges this year,
Wow.
and in my contracts and everything, I say that I will not do a teaser. And a teaser is basically they want you to go in the cafeteria, go in somewhere, and basically promote your show. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not doing it anymore because the times that I've done it, you go there and they're trying to eat their popcorn chicken and finish their homework, and they're looking at you like, why are you juggling and you're just like, you're basically just apologizing the whole time. And they're like, come to my show, I promise I'm not gonna follow you home later. Like it's just creepy. So it is hard to have that sex appeal just seeing it all of a sudden. So I think personality wise somebody can bridge that gap for sure.
So you basically start with the juggling, get the experience, get your foot in the door, and then they see you juggling and go, wow, we like the juggling, but it's your personality.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean if you ever had your own show, or it doesn't mean you couldn't do something with it. Doesn't mean every once in a while Justin will do a card trick, or he'll go on Rachel Ray, or he'll do something.
Right.
There's a lot you can do with it, but I don't think someone is going to be the next Daniel Tosh because they're a juggler.
Well, look at Pat Dempsey.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, but he from Grey's
he was
Anatomy.
sort of a juggler, but he can still break it out. He can still like his.
There's like 2 movies that he's in where he does it. He juggles four plates in one movie. But he obviously put most of his eggs in the acting career, which paid off.
Yes.
He wasn't just a juggler that all of a sudden just fell into Grey's Anatomy or something.
What about acting for Ivan? Is that something you look at?
No, it's not.
No.
And one of the main reasons I did some in college, like because I was stationed in LA. I was here. I could go to auditions. I could do stuff. Acting itself is not a passion of mine. If someone were to be like, "Hey, we have a role in a sitcom for you. Would you want to do it?" I'd be like, "Absolutely," and I would do it.
Right.
But I'm not passionate enough about it to. My career's pretty booked. Like I'm lucky if I'm home 8 to 10 days a month because of my travel schedule. So to stay home to go to an audition or for the hopes that something would, it just wouldn't be worth it.
If it came to you, but you're not going to chase after it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a commercial agent, and she'll try to book me for sports stuff or anything juggling related. But I can't tell you how many commercials I've gone to a callback for, and they want me, and they're just like, oh well, I have a corporate in Tallahassee the day you're filming. No, I can't change it. Like that's it, the end. So you don't get the commercial gig.
And speaking of the sports angle, you're probably one of the fittest jugglers.
I'm also one of the jugglers who wears the smallest shirts. I do that a lot too. The tightest shirts. Yeah.
What you joke that you shop at the Baby Gap?
They don't make the shirt in a man's size. Yeah.
What is your workout regime, and how has that helped or hindered your juggling?
Okay. Well, first off, hindering, I don't think it has hindered it at all. And also people go, oh, like you have big muscles, that must really help with juggling. Like, I don't think it's actually helped it that much either. What really helps, I think, for my show anyway, is doing a lot of cardio, a lot of running. I do a lot of like CrossFit type stuff, which really gets your heart rate going. I try to honestly run 3 miles every day. And I notice that if I don't do that, my show, I find myself very winded. I also think the physique is very much part of my personality on stage.
Right.
Just kind of how smarmy I am and sarcastic. I just think the way I look really, really fits my character. And if I was super skinny or really overweight, the way I am on stage wouldn't play. So it's been a long kind of metamorphosis of everything coming together to find that exact. I don't want to call it a character because I really don't feel like I'm going out on stage and being someone else. Like one of the biggest compliments I get is when I meet people after the show and hang out with them. They're like, "Oh man, you're like, this is exactly how you are on stage." Like I like that. It's kind of like your personality, but you just kind of exemplify it a little bit, So that's kind of how I try to be, and I feel that's kind of how my.
I think the one thing I found about your character is that at first there was a little bit of an edge, the kind of sort of not a meanness, but definitely more of sort of a frat boy kind of.
Absolutely, but also at the same time I was 23.
Right.
I was a frat boy, And also I was hanging out with Jason Garfield a lot.
Right.
Who
That
I was.
rubbed off, you think?
No, absolutely. And a lot Nizer rubbed off on me. Garfield rubbed off on me. He's passing. I mean, the people, when you first start, you emulate the people that you're around. It's just this human nature. And it takes a long time to develop your own character and become your own individual and find your own voice, And so I learned to drop the being a dick thing very quickly, because it wasn't getting the reaction that you would like it to, But also, I didn't really like I didn't like anything cheesy. I didn't like anything that looked fake.
What do you define as cheesy? So you're saying is that a phoniness to it? A cheesy?
Yeah. Okay. So for instance, this is going to be a total cliche, so nobody get offended. But illusionists, okay, guys that do like big magic props.
Sure. The pointing at the box.
Exactly. Come out and just like, and I'm just like, come on, like, cut the garbage. Like, just be a normal guy, or anything that's so over the top. Basically, if you guys know magic, like any snowstorm routine that they do, where they talk about going to an orphanage and all, and I was like, oh, come on, like,
before my father died.
Yeah, just like, I don't want to be like that. I really want people to feel like when I'm performing, it's still a show, but I feel like I'm hanging out with this guy in my living room. Like, one of my favorite things about my show is that every single show, and I can say this 100%, every single one of my show, people will yell stuff out. And sometimes people are like, oh, that's rude. It's like, but and it is sometimes, but I like making people feel welcome enough to where they can do that, because that's what makes it interesting for me. And then that involves everybody. Are there times where it gets way too intense? Sure. But it is rare, because I've learned to.
Can you give us the best heckle line anybody's ever yelled out at you? Can you something come to your mind?
Oh, I get a lot of, take off your shirt. I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, oh, but you fit a lot of balls in your mouth. Like, right. I mean, a lot of standard things. And then, what's hardest for me is when you get someone who they start yelling out incoherent babble, stuff that you can't even come back to.
A comedy club thing? You think the drinking, or the cruises as well? They tend. No,
actually, to be honest, I haven't had that many problems in a comedy club, because also in a comedy club you can say whatever you want to shut them up. Okay, there's no holds barred. On a cruise ship, someone yells out something to you, no matter how vulgar it is, which sometimes it has been. There's kids in the audience.
You can't answer in kind.
No, exactly. You can't say what you want, but they'll get so drunk because they've been at the pool all day, and they'll come up and that's the thing. What I'm saying, when it's incoherent stuff, do it with a fish. What is that? What does that even mean? What?
Right.
Even what? And so you have to learn to just ignore them. And it's almost like a child. If they get to a point where you start doing incoherent babble, you have no choice but to just ignore them and act like they're not even saying anything. They're going to step on your lines for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but then they stop, just like a child. You ignore their tantrum, they're going to stop and go downstairs and eat their sandwich.
One of my least favorite things is when you get heckled, but not enough people can hear it. Like, only you can hear it.
Yeah.
And if you respond to them, first of all, it just looks like you're being mean to someone for no reason.
Right.
But it's just very annoying.
Well, one trick that I've done for that, and I know when a heckle is going to be funny or not, so I'll always repeat what they say.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, so if they say, can you juggle me? And like, you're the only person that hear it, you're like, can I juggle you? And then they hear what they said. It also gives you time to think of something too. It gives you an extra beat to come up with something.
Good tip.
Yeah. I just made that up. I'm going to start doing that.
repeating.
Yeah, this podcast was awesome.
Yeah, well, hopefully the part of the podcast is to get people's stories, but also to get people's tips and things. People can listen to this and actually get something valuable that they can add to their own career that helps them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think the IJ is doing a good thing in that for a long time I just felt like they weren't really contributing enough to the educational library.
I could see that.
And so this will.
I always liked, when you would do a comedy talk, or like I remember the one time that we did the panel.
Yeah.
It was like me, you, and Nizer, and I think John Wee, and who else was there?
I think Rick Rubenstein somehow snuck in.
Yeah. Well, we needed an IT guy, so Rubenstein was there, and then
just in case the PowerPoint got stuck.
Yeah, Menendez was there too.
Menendez, yeah.
Yeah,
I just did one with
that was
him. It
cool.
was really good, yeah.
Yeah, so I that's the thing. If people really want to do this for a living, I still think there's not, because I mean, realistically, how many real professional jugglers are there? I mean, comparatively to other arts, there's not that many. I mean, there's
The
way
one good
more.
thing about the professional jugglers is the top guys. You can go up to them, you can interact with them. You could probably call them at home
Right.
and just say, "Hey, I'm a juggler," and they'd be like, "Oh, okay." You can't really call Eddie Van Halen and go, "Hey, I'm a guitar player."
No, yeah. And just to be clear, I mean, yeah, because that's totally cool. I get it, but you're not giving out my home number, right?
No, no, no.
Okay,
I
okay.
don't even have your home number.
Right. No, I know. Okay.
So
Thanks.
I had to connect over Skype. I had to wait for you to
Yeah.
call me. It's
Right.
like I gotta make a protein shake, then I'll call you. So
I actually am. I'm drinking a protein shake right now. Can you hear it?
it's
Let
good.
me just
Yeah,
shake
so
it.
let's ask a couple final questions for you. So let's say you're on a desert island. You can only grab one prop. What's it going to be?
Oh, geez, one prop.
I mean, one. I mean, not just one ball or one club.
Yeah, yeah. Balls. It'd be balls.
Balls.
Yeah. I've always that's always been my strongest prop.
You use the Russian balls?
I do. I've used the Russian balls for, gosh, since college. So probably a good 15 years. I've been using those. The Vladic balls specifically.
So those are the ones half filled with a sand or
yeah, about a quarter fill. I don't know how many grams or anything. I've been using
Right.
the same ones. I call him and I go, hey man, send me the. I think I'm the only guy who orders from him, to be honest. I think he just makes them for me and Vladic. And he just, I'll order 20 every couple of years, and they seem to last me. It's funny now that I don't practice as much as I used to do 8 hour days. It's amazing how long like Renegades clubs actually last. Guys, I haven't bought new clubs probably in like 4 years, and I used to go through probably 15 clubs a year.
15 club? Were you doing the Jason Garfield slamming them on the floor? How do you?
Someone would break in anger, but I mean, 8 hours a day practicing.
Sometimes they just wouldn't learn. They just wouldn't learn. You had to discipline them a little bit.
Right. No, it's, I mean, when you're practicing 8 hours a day, they're going to get destroyed. You're going to have handles break. You're going to have knobs break. And now it's just funny that like I've had the same ones forever.
And what would you say the most difficult trick you do in your show? Give us kind of a little bit of a rundown of some of the props you do in the show.
Okay. Well, I feel one of the things that differs me from a lot of other jugglers, or comedy jugglers anyway, I don't do a unicycle. I don't do a rolla bola. I don't do any of because there's a lot of those standard kind of juggling routines that you just assume, oh, juggler's got a unicycle. Like I can't even ride a unicycle. I've never done any of that. I don't do devil stick. I don't do Diablo. And not by choice. I think devil stick is one of the coolest props in the world. And I remember doing the Australia juggling convention. They had me over there to headline it a couple of years ago. It was more than a couple of years ago. It was like 6 or 7 years ago. And Tempe was there. Yeah. And all he did was a Diablo and a devil stick act. And after watching his devil stick act, I was just like that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like I'm going to learn that. And of course I owned a devil stick. And so I went home and tried it for a week and was like, yeah, I'm not going to learn that.
Well, and plus there's devil stick acts and then there's devil stick acts. I mean,
exactly. And so I didn't need, exactly. I didn't need the time in my show to like, here's a half-assed 2-minute routine. I just didn't.
Not inherently fun either, the devil stick. It's a hard one to really.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the kind of way that I look at it. I mean, I wasn't looking at it from a comedy aspect. I was like, do I want a 2-minute flash devil stick routine? Not really.
Right.
And it's hard. And I was like, I don't like it that much. But I do so the musical routine. So my show, let's say I do an hour and a half show. My musical routines, I do a ball routine to music, like a ball juggling routine to music. 3, 4, 5, 7 balls. I do a cigar box routine to music. I do a ball bouncing routine to music, tennis ball routine to music.
Tennis can, you're saying?
Tennis ball and can, tennis ball and can routine to music, and a glow in the dark routine to music. So that's five routines to music, in the whole show, and that totals maybe 18 minutes. So an hour
are the comedy bits.
The rest of it's comedy, and I do. Don't get me wrong. I use a lot of music in my show, but it's accent music.
Right,
so
bumpers.
I do my whole club routine where I'm talking, and then the final trick where I kick the club over my head. That's a 15-second track. That kind of thing.
And what do we know about that trick? Because that's a very interesting trick that's become very popular. Is the kickback over the overhead.
It's well, it's one of those tricks where, unfortunately, I mean, I'd like to say, oh, it's the hardest trick in the world, but with a club, it's not that hard, and
Let's explain. So you're balancing on your head.
You bounce
it
the club on
drops
your
back behind you.
You bounce the club before you drop it back behind yourself. You basically with the right under it's not your heel, I guess the ball of your foot right under your toes,
flat of your foot, yeah.
The flat of your foot, you kick it back up over your head, and you continue juggling.
Right.
And it looks great because it's like, it's weird kicking a club and being accurate with it. But the trick itself, once you learn it, it's really not that hard. It was hard to learn,
right?
But once you get it, I mean, my success rate, I one of the future, I said, you gave me 100 tries, I would get it 100 tries in a row.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There's, I mean, if I do miss it, it's, I mean, a complete fluke.
Right.
It's almost like head roll, for instance. I usually open my show with a talking routine where I'm doing, head roll, rolling the ball around your head.
Mm-hmm.
And to learn, I still think, other than bouncing a ball in your head while juggling, I think it's one of the hardest things I learned how to do in juggling, out of everything I can do. But now I could do it in my sleep.
Well, those are good tricks, because some tricks that I've done, no matter how much I practice them, I never really feel like you can perfect them. Sort of like juggling the two balls on the face of the golf club. It just seems like
I mean,
I get to a certain level of goodness.
Right.
And no matter how much practice I could put into it, it's never really going to get much past that.
Not going to click for it. What was like that was 3 ping pong balls for me.
Right.
I can do two ping pong balls all day long. I can do 5, like using your hands, but doing 3 with just your mouth. I mean, I worked truthfully for a solid year on it, and I couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it.
You know what impresses me about your show, and this is something I'm struggling with now, is that the finale, the fact that you can end with like a ring routine, and it seems like the crowd goes crazy for it.
Well, here's what I started doing. So all my life, I would do a ring routine to music. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 rings to a ring routine to music. That's what I did for probably 5 or 6 years. I started ending my 5 ring routine with the ring kick, and that would get. With the ring kick, basically you juggle 5, throw it back over your head, you kick a ring back up, and then you continue and pull them all down around your neck. And that would get, as far as the juggling goes, that would get the biggest reaction in my show. That would get the biggest, like, whoa! And sometimes after I did that trick, a couple people would stand up in the audience. They thought I was just the coolest thing. And so one time I was talking to a magician named Drew Thomas, and I was doing a 20-minute spot on a cruise ship. And he goes, why don't you try ending with just that trick? And I'm like, what do you mean ending with just that? And he goes, hey, just try ending with just that trick. Like, just do the 5 and kick it and see what happens. And I was like, all right, yeah, why not? Tried it. And I did it, and standing ovation. And it was like, wow. And so like that, I ditched my entire, I do not do a ring routine anymore to music. I literally, the only thing I do with rings is I do the kick with 5 rings. And of course I build it up. I mean, I don't lie too much, and that is a trick where I do get 19 out of 20 times. I mean, very rarely do I miss it in a show, but if I do miss something, it's usually that.
And we do the trick with the club earlier in the show, and then sort of bring it back for the rings.
I do, yeah, I do. But it's kind of a different trick, and it's so much later in the show that it's like, oh yeah, And I also do a callback. I do a kid juggling where I juggle a kid. I have a joke about kicking the kid over my head. So it's kind of a little running theme. But I don't say what I'm going to do. I just say this is, final trick, whatever. I juggle 4, pull the ring off my head. So they think that's the trick. They're, and then that gets it. So I'm juggling 5 rings. And then depending on how I feel, I'll do a pirouette. And then they go, oh, and then right after that, I'll do the ring. And then they just seem to just go. And then when you do the pull down, you do the 2 and then throw the pancake and 2 more in pirouette and catch it in your neck and flip them off and just stand. They don't really have a choice.
I like that. They don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice. If they do, they hate America. Flags come down. I make veterans.
So that's your
up.
American flag. That's
my ring kick is my American flag because I'm a communist. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We won't end on that note, but
no, let's edit that. This isn't live, right? No. All right, good. We're good.
Well, we don't do much editing. We pretty much run it as it goes.
Yeah.
And one last question, or maybe a couple last questions, but because we'll try to break it down here in the next couple of minutes.
Sure.
What do you think the odds of me getting Anthony Gatto on the podcast are? Because I tried calling him, he wasn't getting back to me.
Yeah, he changed his phone number. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Probably 0.
Yeah. So I know
Yeah.
you guys were friends. I've been good friends with Anthony, and there
Yeah.
have been guys in the past who've just said, "Well, I'm sort of done with juggling," and that means sort of being done with jugglers as well.
I mean, I don't, Anthony had like him and I have always been like really good friends. I mean, like our families went camping together and stuff. Like he is a good buddy, so I mean, I don't want to say too much
No,
about him,
no, no.
but
I'm not
like,
asking you to speak for him. I'm just, he's just someone I'd really like to have on the podcast.
yeah, I mean, all I can say is that from the day that I met him, which is like when I moved to Vegas, he was done with juggling then.
Right.
Like he's been in his heart, in his, of course he loved it and he had a passion for it and everything, but he was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, he's been doing it since he was
Right.
6 years old. He just it didn't have the drive to continue doing it. Which we had a lot of talks about that. And I was I remember, I will say this. I remember one time we were drinking beer at his house, and he was just like, I mean, these guys are telling me that I should film these videos and do stuff. I mean, like, I don't feel like I owe this to anybody. I mean, what do you think? And I was like, honestly, yeah, I do. I do think you owe it to everybody. Like you are the best that's ever lived. You are the best that probably there ever will be for a long, long time. Yeah, it kind of is your duty to document what the human body can do and what what you're capable of. Like I do. Like I'm not saying go do every trick in the book, but I mean if you think you can really do 9 balls for 4 minutes, like damn it, you should film yourself doing that and have a record that like. I mean, what if Mozart was just like, you know what? When he was 20, forget it. I quit.
Well, I agree. I think that in my opinion, and I'm usually right.
You're
that
always right.
well, I'll leave a little bit of wiggle room. I think he's the greatest technical juggler who's ever lived.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody could argue that. I mean,
Well, people have argued, but they've been wrong.
well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You
They
could
have
argue
for sure.
anything. Sure,
Well,
argue
let me
away.
ask you then. I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to have you speak for him. He's just a guy who I really admire, and if he ever were to hear this, I would certainly love for him to come and do the podcast. Of course.
Yeah.
Who would you want to hear? Let's have a couple of people who you think would be interesting and
Who would I want to hear?
sure.
Oh wow. Let's see. Jugglers.
Well, it could be people who you think would be of benefit to jugglers as well. If you think there's a someone in show business who
Yeah. See, juggling wise, I'm trying to think. I mean, I always like all the comedy stuff. For me
well, I'll try to
personally.
get the passing zone. I think as
Yeah,
far
like
as
I mean, they would totally do it. I mean,
yeah,
they're always good for a laugh, and I mean, it's hard because the past years, I mean, I haven't worked with any other jugglers. Everybody I've worked with has been,
right.
I just worked with Chipper Lowell for the first time. If you guys haven't
I've
seen
seen a
him,
little bit of Chipper Lowell. He's a comedy magician. Seems really good.
he's fantastic, and I've been Facebook friends with him. I was doing a show at a casino in Lake Tahoe probably 8 years ago. And we overlapped one day. I was taking over for him when his run was done, and he's one of those guys that he always killed. And if there was 12 people in the audience, the other acts would come off and be like, oh, like there's 12
Right.
people. Like, oh, no, I thought they were great, And he's that guy. And so I just worked with him. I just got off a cruise ship in Alaska yesterday, and I was with him for the entire run that I was there. And so like he did his own show, I did my own show, and then him and I split a show. And he's great, knowledgeable, from a circus family, and he juggles. He used to juggle a lot in his show.
Yeah,
He
I know him years ago, and he just became a Facebook friend. So I'll reach out to him because
he'd be great. I mean, he's got a lot of stories. His dad was a very successful agent in later years, and I mean, he literally grew up in circuses on the road. Like it's a very unique upbringing.
well, this is sponsored by the IGA. So for most of it, I'll be talking to jugglers. But perhaps if
Sure,
I
yeah.
expand into a podcast of my own for showbiz types.
Yeah. Let's see, juggling wise, I'm trying to think who, like, passing them. It's hard because I mean, if you want to talk career and talk everything else, I mean, it's hard to talk to somebody who's been doing it for a year,
Right.
So it seems like you're going to get more or less veteran type guys. But if you want to go as far as practice technique or theory, I mean, then maybe you can be looking at talking to. I'm sure everyone listened to your Wes Peden interview.
I put out a Facebook post to Wes. Have not heard back. I also tried Jay Gilligan, of course. I think is a very
Yeah.
interesting character.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
The guy's done a TED talk. It's pretty amazing for a juggler.
yeah,
For
there
anybody,
have been
for
jugglers
anybody
who've done
anyway.
TED Talks. I've
Yeah.
heard about those.
Yeah. Have you heard about those?
I have. He did one TED Talk. I think the Raspini's have done 6 TED
Oh,
Talks.
have they? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You know what? I'll probably talk to Barry at some point.
You're wearing a TED T-shirt right now, aren't
I
you?
am, exactly. I'm looking at this. I got this microphone in one of my TED gift bags.
That's
So,
nice.
but I was very disappointed with the last TED gift bag. So if you do TED, don't expect those good gift bags anymore.
iPhones anymore. They give you Galaxies. It's cheap.
Well, back in the day, they gave us quite a good one. This last one was shampoo samples and a water bottle. I'm not sure what the budget has happened to the TED Talks, but
Right.
it's gone downhill a little bit. But I'll probably talk to Barry. I think that would be interesting to sort of a little Raspini.
Yeah, I think Bronkar would be good to talk to.
Yeah, Bronkar Lee, another guy.
Yeah.
I think he's another guy who's got that potential to really
Yeah.
sort of. Because I always think of activities like bodybuilding. You had Arnold Schwarzenegger, or martial arts. You had Bruce Lee. Maybe in radio you had Howard Stern, stuntman,
Exactly.
Evel Knievel.
Sure.
We're still waiting for that one guy, and I think if anybody can do it, it might be Ivan Pecel. Okay, I'm going to say it would be Ivan Pecel.
Well, that means a lot. I would like nothing more than to have that happen. I mean, we've talked a little bit, but I'm trying to branch out into the other realms and see what I can make out of this crazy business that we call show.
Well, thanks so much for talking on the Drop Everything podcast. Real pleasure, and of course, we'll continue our conversations that are a little more scandalous when we just talk, the two of us.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. A couple dudes hanging out,
hanging out.
Whatever. I mean, huh?
The language gets a little saltier.
A little
but
bit.
I think this was a good one for family consumption. I thank you so much, Ivan Pecel.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed podcast number 5 of Drop Everything with Ivan Pecel. After we stopped recording, we both remembered another juggler who we want to talk to in a future podcast, a good friend of both of ours, Matt Hall. So we give a shout out to Matt Hall, not forgotten Matt Hall, and hopefully you'll be on the podcast soon. Thanks again to our sponsors, IJA, the International Juggling Association. You can find them at juggle.org. Become a member today and reach new heights with your juggling. Also, braindrizzles.com for career and comedy advice, for mentorship concerning the world of juggling, professional juggling, and comedy. Check out braindrizzles.com. Until next time, drop everything except when you're juggling. This is Dan Holzman saying goodbye. Thanks again, of course, to my lovely engineer, Karen Holzman.